Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Tales of a 50-Year-Old Gamer. It is me, Pook, here, and hope everyone's having a good day. Recording here on October 3rd at 12:16 in the afternoon, Eastern Standard Time, and figure we'd talk about the art of trading NES tapes, NES games, NES cartridges back in the day. There was a fine art to trading NES games. I mean, it wasn't like let's say you had Super Mario Brothers 3, which at the time was a big trade item. You didn't just let someone borrow it for nothing. It doesn't matter, even if you were like best friends or whatever. You always had to have a game in return. I mean, at least that's how it was in my area with the people that I traded with, and my friends and stuff. And you couldn't just trade, like, let's say Deadly Towers, a lesser quality NES game, even though I like Deadly Towers, but I like weird games like that. But you couldn't just trade Deadly Towers for Super Mario 3 for a week or so. If you had a bunch of crappy games, you probably weren't going to get to borrow Super Mario Brothers 3 from somebody unless you traded a bunch of them for it. There was certain games that were considered more high quality, like Super Mario Brothers 3, like Tecmo Super Bowl, not Tecmo Bowl, but Tecmo Super Bowl. Games like that, people usually wanted either another quote high quality game or wanted a few games, regular games. Like, let's say you had like Commando and the original Tecmo Bowl, and you wanted to borrow Tecmo Super Bowl off somebody, and they wanted to go ahead and play those games, which, I don't know why they'd want to borrow Tecmo Bowl, but if they already have Tecmo Super Bowl, because it was so much better. But you would have to give up both games just to get that for the week or whatever. So it was kind of a little strategic thing. You had to make sure what you were trading for was kind of equal or on par. That's like I said, that's how it was. I know maybe other people had different trading, but everybody borrowed Nintendo games off each other. So, it was kind of an art to negotiate a deal for the week or 2 weeks or whatever. And I remember Legend of Zelda, the first one being a higher quality NES game, Mario 3, Tecmo Super Bowl, Kirby's Adventure actually was, and then there was lesser ones like Dragon Warrior, because Dragon Warrior everybody had because everybody was having the Nintendo Power subscription, and they gave Dragon Warrior for free. Another great game, but it's just everybody had it. Same thing like Super Mario Brothers Duck Hunt, everybody had it. Or Super Mario Brothers. If you didn't have Super Mario Brothers Duck Hunt, then you had the standalone Super Mario Brothers cartridge. I mean, like, everybody had it. Even though you could say Super Mario Brothers is one of the best games for the NES, but it didn't hold up in that trade quality or borrow quality because everybody had it, and nobody wants to borrow a game they already had, and then you had good games that just were considered low quality, maybe because they were older and stuff, like Excite Bike, or even like pro wrestling and stuff. And then you had those in-betweeners that were medium quality, like Ninja Gaiden, the first Castlevania, games like that were considered, Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. Those were always in the middle category. It was crazy, but it was like trading for gold or oil or spices or tea back in the day, back in the olden days, But it was crazy. I mean, even like I said, even best friends did that. If you were going to trade somebody to borrow, you had to give something up that was of equal quality. I mean, and there was instances where you felt bad for somebody, let them borrow a game for nothing or whatever, and a lot of times that ended up in disaster. I had one story. I had an NES game, not a higher, what would have been considered a higher quality and trade game, but a game I liked very much, called Ninja Kid. And I let a close friend, borrow it. And what he did that I didn't know is he let someone else borrow it for a different game that he wanted to play more. and that person's house actually caught on fire, and my Ninja Kid game was destroyed, or at least that's how the story goes. So, and I didn't borrow anything, so I was out a game on that one, and I mean, he paid me back later because later on, it was much later on, but later on he gave me a couple games and he's like, "That's to replace Ninja Kid," back in the day. So, I mean, it was cool, but it wasn't a big deal. But it was kind of like, what do you do in those situations when you're 13, 14, even 15? I mean, do you get in a physical fight over it, or do you get the parents involved? The parents, you tell your mom, you're gonna go run and tell your mommy, that'll kill you in the it was word of mouth in trading Nintendo tapes. It's like, oh, he'll go tell his mom, or he'll go tell his dad, or he'll rat you out, kind of thing. You don't want to trade with somebody like that. So no, you just kind of take the L if something like that happened. And like I said, that happened to me with a really good friend with the Ninja Kid, and I just said, okay, well, don't worry about it. And like I said, it was maybe a few years later down the line, he gave me, I don't remember how long it was. It could have been 3 weeks. I don't remember. It was a long time ago, but he ended up giving me a couple, it wasn't Ninja Kid, but it was a couple other games I didn't have. And I wanted to borrow, and he's like, you know what, you can just have those and consider it payment for Ninja Kid. So he was a stand-up guy, he was a stand-up dude about it. So, but other people, and then, if, let's say you did take a lesser quality game to help someone out. Like, I remember a trade had nothing to do with me, but I remember the people involved. It was in middle school, and Bases Loaded for the NES, while really super common and a super common and cheap NES game now, back in the day, was a pretty popular NES game because it had great graphics, it played good, and it was a good baseball NES game. Someone at school, another person at school, borrowed Bases Loaded, and they borrowed some other game, which I can't remember what that game was, but it was of lesser trade quality. He just did it because he wanted to let the guy borrow Bases Loaded, and the guy never traded him back. So yeah, he got to keep the other game, but the other game wasn't as good as Bases Loaded, and that created a situation with them too. And I think they ended up getting into a physical fight over it. But things like that would happen back in the day. So the art of trading NES games, especially NES games. Now later on with like Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo and stuff, I didn't do a whole lot of trading. I usually just bought. At that point, when the Sega Genesis came out, I was 15, and I was pretty much already working, because when I was like 12 or 13, I already had a newspaper route, and I went from a newspaper route to a job, and I've always had a job since then. I've always worked or made money or did whatever. So I didn't have to do a whole lot of trading at that point, because if I wanted a game, I just went out and bought it. Because I would work as a kid. I mean, I worked, after school and days off, weekends and stuff from school. And I'd work 20, 30 hours a week, and I didn't have any bills. I was a kid. So I could buy NES games every week, or, later on Genesis, Super Nintendo, TurboGrafx and all that stuff. And then by the time like PlayStation 1 and stuff came out, I was basically adult. I was an adult in 95. I was already 20. So yeah, I just bought my own shit at that point. Well, you'd still trade with a buddy here and there, but not like back in the day. The NES trading days were ruthless. I mean, it was, bartering, like people trading, like Oregon Trail days or something, like trading for spices and shit. It's like, it was a big deal with kids. And that also encountered like Nintendo Power magazines or Electronic Gaming Monthly magazines. If somebody borrowed it, usually wasn't for nothing. You had to get something, maybe a game or a controller or something. That's one thing I never did. I never loaned out controllers, because I knew if you loaned out a controller, you weren't getting it back the same. I mean, it would get abused, or it'd be all sticky from junk food and pop, and that was something that I would not do, was loan out controllers. Or I did loan my NES to a friend one time, because I already had a I think we had a Sega Master System at that time as well, because we ended up getting a Sega Master System, which I will do a story on sometime on this series about the Sega Master System. But we had a Sega Master System at the time and was playing a lot of games on that. I remember playing Phantasy Star and then Shinobi. And really wasn't playing the NES. My friend, he had an Atari 2600, but he wanted to play some NES. I loaned him my NES for a few weeks and some of my NES games, and I got them back. Everything was fine. But generally, I wouldn't loan out a game console or controllers. Games, I would, but not consoles and stuff. So. But this has been another episode of Tales of a 50-Year-Old Gamer, talking about in the past. And we're going to talk more about the past, present, video game and video game stuff. And I hope you all enjoyed this episode here. Peace out, everybody. Have a great day.